Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to In the Studio, a very special episode. We're down at the Darwin Entertainment Studio Theatre with a very special guest, founder of the Gary Lang Anti-Dance Company, the man himself, Mr. Gary Lang.
I'm really well, thank you very much.
No worries. Now, you are quite well known amongst circles up here in the arts circles. Just for the people out there who aren't too familiar, can you just give us a bit of a brief background on yourself and some of the work you do up here?
My first profession is hairdressing.
Yeah.
Because as a child growing up, I've always enjoyed dance because there's always been dance in my household. And one of the big memorable moments of being with my mum, when her and I was at home by ourselves, she used to put me on the kitchen table and she used to rush and put 2 songs on Nat King Cole, one of them, and the other Nat King Cole was Fascination. Mm-hmm. It was Fascination. And she'd go into her room and put her bridal gown on, and because she had long hair and very luscious and very beautiful, my mother was. When Fascination used to come out, she used to come out bouncing her wedding dress and like dancing in it, and she'd grab my finger and she'd twirl around the dinner table. Mm-hmm. And that's where dance, I've always loved dance because my mum used to dance with me. As a young man growing up, because I come from a very big sporting family, it was mm-hmm. It wasn't a heard of thing.
Yep.
And my mother said, Gary, when I finished school, you need to get yourself a trade. So, you know, being a carpenter or something wasn't for me. And she said, I know somebody, why don't you do hairdressing? So that's what happened with me as a hairdresser. Finished my apprenticeship, went and studied dance at Nays the Dance College, which was based in Sydney. Now they're up in Gosford area. Mm-hmm. And studied there and danced with 3 companies within Australia. And the first one was the first Indigenous dance company, AIDT, the company, who the artistic director was RAMOND BLANCO.
Yep. And
then danced with BANGARRA. And
pretty big name, BANGARRA.
Yeah. Well, it was at that time, it was a community-based company, but
yep.
now they're international.
Yep.
And the person, artistic director, that was Stephen Page.
Yep.
And co-director was Bernadette Waylong. And then Dance North in Townsville, and Jane Pirani was the artistic director of that time. And I, travelled the world with these companies.
Yeah. You did break the mould. You said you came, there was more sporting family, and you broke the mould.
Yes.
With the dancing.
There's certain codes in everybody's family, but again, it's starting to happen now with a lot of the younger ones. Mm-hmm. They're making a difference. They're not just because it's sport, because very sporty people, but chose to sing, chose to be actors, chose to be dancers. Who else? Doctors. It's just breaking the mould, which is fantastic to see.
Mm-hmm. And it's a very brave step, especially today's day and age. It's brave today, but going back, it was a very, very rigid.
Being young, it was very hard. But one of my things, my mother, there was a saying my mother used to say to me as I was growing up, and I didn't realise it until I actually got older. But if young kids can really get that into their thought pattern about, and it's a Buddhist philosophy, she said, what people think of you is none of your business. Mm-hmm. I didn't really understand that until I actually went away and working professionally. But when I teach in schools here, I've been doing it for the last couple of years here in Darwin, mm-hmm. I always say, what people think of you is none of your business.
Exactly. Yeah, brilliant. Now, not a lot of people who come from an artistic background will fully appreciate just how hard dancing is. I did, I touched on a bit of dancing, but it's pretty hard work, isn't it?
Well, my injury sustained in dance, I had my nose, I had it fractured, and then, ended up with 2 black eyes, dislocated shoulder, L4 L4 slip disc, L5 stress fracture, and in my training, I was told you have to peak every time when you do class. You have to be in the moment at that time every time, because if you put 50% in, when you come to perform, you're a 50% dancer. So every time we trained dancing, you had to be 100 or 110%, you know.
Yeah.
So when you walked out on stage, you were just brilliant. So they were talking about, like with sports people, you know, there's a period of time when they have to train, and I think especially for runners, I don't know for Aussie rules or rugby league, but there's a point of training to actually be at that peak for that particular run. And then it's, you know, it slows down.
Yeah, that's what it's like. It's like you build to a point. Yeah, because I played footy for a few years.
Yeah.
You know, all through training through the week, you'd build, and then you want to be at max at the weekend. Whereas with dancing, you have to be max the whole time.
All the time.
Speaking of dancing, you've done a couple of pretty decent productions up here, pretty big ones. Let's have a chat about Goose Lagoon.
Goose Lagoon, well, most of my work is based on any Indigenous family. They have certain family stories. Goose Lagoon was when my grandfather used to say, whether we went out with the immediate family or other families, and he used to tell us stories, and it was a way of keeping children quiet when you go hunting. That he used to say, tell us a story about this young girl. She was promised to one person, this medicine man, and she was in love with somebody else, but because the medicine man was jealous, he turned her into a goose. So he said, you have to try to look for her. So you have to be really quiet, because then she'll change, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what Goose Lagoon, it was about goose hunting season.
Yeah. So, and it's like a play on the Swan Lake.
Oh, well,
like very similar themes.
Well, no, I do like the classics, you know, and this is what a lot of people said to me, even like when we did Munokapos about the pearling industry, and it was based on the mermaids. And a lot of people, like other people said, oh, I didn't realise Indigenous people had mermaid dreaming, mermaid stories, and I said, we do. There's a lot of similarities, but you know, we just call them different names.
Yeah, you draw your inspiration from what you know.
And like Munokapu was based on, well, you having old families in Darwin, about the pearling industry here. Because when they used to go down, my grandfather used to say, because of the bells on their head, masks that they used to go underneath.
The diver's mask. Yeah,
diver's mask, yeah. And some of them will hallucinate on the oxygen because, you know, like...
Not used to it. Yeah.
Not used to it, you know, and they'd see things that aren't there. And so, but it was based on that.
All right. Now, last year during the Garmalang Festival, you had Mokoi.
Mokoi is a Aboriginal Yulngu Yako, Yulngu name from East Arnhem Land. That's spirit. And it was based on, you know how in Darwin there was, or right across the territory, and even Western Australia through to North Queensland, a lot of youth suicides. And it was happening in my own family group and extended family groups. It was a dedication to their soul, whoever it may be, and helping. It was meant to be a healing thing for myself too, because knowing, you know, like you hear of extended families, children committing suicide. My niece actually walked out and where she was living, and she saw a friend, their housemate, hanging like a strange fruit from the garage, you know. So, you know, those sort of things, and it's about the journey of the soul. It was because we don't know.
Exactly.
You know, and we don't know. And I use classical music, two types of music. I used traditional music from Arnhem Land, but we didn't do traditional dance. It was the song cycles, because as one finishes, another comes through and picks up. And the classical music that I used was for the spirit's journey. So and the traditional music was the physical world, and the classical music was the spirit world. Yeah,
and I actually went down and watched that one. It was absolutely amazing. Like for somebody who isn't, you know, dance inclined, for me it was quite moving, and you do get that sense of, you know, the handing over, not sort of handing over, just everything keeps moving.
Yeah, and the journey of the soul, because there's that point of, it's like going through two rooms, leaving this room, going into another room, and then the wonderment of stepping into the light, because it's that period in between,
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, you could call it purgatory or whatever it is where we leave what my mum used to talk about is, it's a point when we leave the physical things in our spirit, we leave that behind. It's
Mm-hmm.
like another journey to release things and then become the light.
Yep. So it's just that transition period, yeah?
And I think a lot of people, some people have got to critiques, you know, like not to, I read a critique on my work and they didn't really understand because there was a lot of pauses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Indigenous storytelling is different to non-Indigenous.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like you yourself, you'd hear your family talk, or especially them old people talk, you know, they talk, then they stop.
Mm.
Then they'll pick it up after having a cup of tea, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's about, but the stopping of it, it was allowing people's mind to, it was like taking a very slow blink
Mm-hmm.
and then opening your eyes to the next world.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, so it was beat based.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than just a, you know, linear and chronological. Yes. Yeah, well, you know, that's part of the reason why I liked it, because it stepped away from the traditional linear
Yes.
story that just ran the one way.
Yes.
And yeah. Speaking of journeys, you mentioned touring before. Tell us a bit about your touring days. Like, are there's tours coming up, but tell us about some of the tours you've done in the past.
Well, travelling with the 3 companies, travelled extensively throughout Australia, and it was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And even with the 3 companies travelling internationally was fantastic. You know, been to Japan 3 times, Korea twice, England twice, went to Egypt, danced at the '96 Olympics
Mm-hmm.
in Atlanta, Georgia, our closing ceremony with BANGARRA, performed in Seattle, New Zealand, Namibia,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so even in Jakarta, you know, they're the places, you know. So, and Berlin, that was awesome, yeah. You know, had a very good time in Berlin.
Just worldwide.
Yeah, travelled extensively with other companies, but hoping that it would happen with my own company too, to give them. One of the things in the back of my head is the people that I'm working with, they're getting an experience, but I want to give them the experience of travelling nationally or internationally too, because, yeah.
Now, do you find with audience, wherever you travel, do you get sort of the same feel? Because it's the same kind of people who are going to go to watch a dance show. It's the same people from, like you said, Berlin and from the United States are going to have the same kind of tastes, or do you find it a little bit different?
Well, because my genre of dance is classical, BANGARRA has fused traditional movement with the contemporary dance, which is fantastic. But I think the rest of the world and the rest of Australia has to, because coming out of NASA, there's a lot of graduates that are working on their own work, and they work in a particular style. And I think as you get older, you start to really understand or know who you are, what your style is. Because for a very long time when I was working, creating work, I found people say, oh, it's not BANGARRA, because it's the only Indigenous company to compare to, where like in Australia, non-Indigenous, Chunky Moves, AIDT, Australian Ballet, Western Australian Ballet, Queensland Ballet, there's there's a myriad of things and I think that's what people didn't expect of my work, because I like the classical lines. I love classical ballet. And yes, I can do movement like BANGARRA, but it's a choice. And like I was saying, for many years I didn't know who I was, and then I went to OCA, Contemporary Indigenous Dance Company in WA. And Lucette Aldous, she is a legend of the Australian Ballet, and she's a 76-year-old woman, and she danced with Nureyev, and her daughter was dancing in this piece that I was doing. Anyway, and she looked at my work for a whole week, and she just looked at my work, and she came up to me, very regal, beautiful, beautiful little woman. You know, she's a tiny woman, but beautiful. And she said, "Your work isn't contemporary Indigenous dance, Gary. Your work is Aboriginal ballet." So I say my work is Aboriginal ballet.
Brilliant. You're your own
Yeah.
genre.
Genre, yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's really hard because, like I said, you know, there's nothing to compare you to, so you aspire. And it's amazing how people will compare you to their own Indigenous dance company or, you know. And after coming back from Sydney this time with the Sydney Festival, we did Long Grass, I realised Darwin is an untapped resource. You know how we have music and the visual arts, Indigenous. But dance, regardless whether you're black, white or brindle, we have great practitioners here, you know, and great dance teachers within the schools. So, you know, they've gone away and studied, you know, and they're Darwin, some of them are Darwin-based people. And, you know, we're just an untapped resource, and I think that, and hopefully so that will change, because I hear people when I talk to people, my own peers, that there's nothing really of dance coming out of the territory.
Was that kind of the driving force behind Gary Lang Anti-Dance Company?
Well, people ask me, and there's again comparison to Tracks. Loved Tracks Dance Company, worked with them. David and Tim, the artistic directors, are very supportive of what I do here in Darwin, and I have great support. You know, like people helping people from Artback, the ladies from Artback, Arts NT, even DEC, Darwin Entertainment Centre, you know, being artists in residence for many years with them and creating work and performing work here, using it as a world premiere, you know. I think we have great facilities too, you know. But it's, yeah, Gary Lang Anti-Dance Company, I see us being international and national. And people say, why do you want to be in Darwin? Well, Darwin is a place now, it's growing.
Yep.
You can make something of yourself here in Darwin. Like, not necessarily, like if I go back, people say, why don't you, you know, like from down south, come back to Sydney or go to Melbourne and live. Well, I'm one of many, many people working, you know, and again, you know, it's Darwin is my home.
Exactly, yeah.
This is my country, Larrakia country, you know. I have, and I was told once that Darwin would give me nothing, it gave me everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think I can move away and, you know, start up again, but what for? Darwin's growing into a beautiful city. It's not a little country, you know, country girl now. She's becoming a beautiful woman.
We've got our own Indigenous festival now.
Yeah, Garramalung, yeah.
Kicked off last year.
Oh, Ben Gratz was fantastic, you know, like he's really trying to make a difference.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was really good to see, because, you know, every other major city in Australia has their Indigenous festival, and, you know, I always wondered, you know, where's Darwin's, because Darwin is so, you know, clued in and tapped into their Indigenous culture and their knowledge here, and it was just really, really wonderful to see last year that, you know.
And it was very successful.
Yeah, it was great.
And they got an award. Fantastic, you know. First one, got an award for it. But again, you know, like as being an artist here, you know, it's what's the word?
Unique.
Unique, yeah. Being in Darwin. Yeah. And I had a friend, because all my male dancers I've trained myself. The females that dance with me are classically trained, but I think my men can stand their own if they went away down south. Like Darren, like working with Vicky Van Hoot, you know, she was really surprised, like, and this is where I went, you know, and people that I knew that were sitting in the audience from Long Grass, they were really surprised, that the calibre of work or teaching of people here in Darwin is fantastic.
Well, yeah, you get a lot of, Darwin has a bit of a stigma about it down south, that it's this, you know, backwater town with dirt roads and all of that.
Oh yeah, this is something I said when I first came back. I was in such joy to work with my own people, you know, the people that come to my classes, and it's a mixture of people. But I was in such joy because, you know what, and I was telling the young dancers, we're not the lesser of anybody down south.
Yeah.
I think we could stand our own with people, you know, as in dancers.
Yeah.
even choreography.
In
anything.
all the arts. Yeah.
In all the arts.
In all the arts. Actors.
That's right.
Now you are like a lot of Indigenous artists, dancing isn't your only forte. You're quite an accomplished painter as well. Tell us about some of your artworks.
I've got work in Japan, Berlin, and in Santa Fe, New Mexico, I think, in America. Yeah, was selling my artwork for a period of time, and then I just stopped. But I always dab in different things, and yeah, but painting. And because there was nobody here to show me the style of paintings, and there was not much information unless you go to the National Museum. And now some of the elders of the community are revising that, but my style is very much like Arnhem Land style because that's how I was taught to paint. But I've taken it and made it my own. It's different. It's just different to what they do. Yeah.
As with any artist of any genre, whether it be musician, actor, dancer, painter, you'll pick and choose a few things that'll inspire you, and then you'll create your own.
Or the technique, and then you work on that technique to make your own. Yeah.
Do you see yourself as a bit of an inspiration to Larrakia people or a Larrakia person who might want to pursue a career in the arts, or just pursue their dreams in the arts?
I think what I do, and no one will ever tell me, I don't think so, but yeah, because it's like people are not going to tell you your good points, but people will tell you your bad points, and I don't know, I really don't know, I'm just doing.
Yep.
And I think action speaks louder than words. That's another one of my mother's sayings.
Yep. It's a good one.
Yeah, and I'm just doing what I do. In my family, we have because we all come from, my family line is Cabillo, but within the different families of the Cabillo tree, there are some great artists, even outside of that. There's some great, you look at Larrakia Nation, you look at the artwork that's coming out of there, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I think trying to be a role model, it's hard because it's a journey that you have to take yourself. And along the way you will meet people that will support you and also protect you. Somebody, an Indigenous kid can go, I want to be like that, or I know I can make a difference. Yep. That's the idea of being an Indigenous role model, is to make a difference in community. And like me growing up here in Darwin, there's a lot of people that I used to call, I do still call aunties. They're not blood relatives, or they're like my grandmothers or my mothers or my aunties and uncles. But because things change within Aboriginal communities and there's that in-house fighting, but in my soul, that's how I grew up. All these, regardless what they're thinking of me, I still call them auntie and uncle or granny, or I call them sister. Those extended families things. And I think that's being Indigenous. But to make a difference is a journey that you'll travel by yourself, and then hopefully so people will see you as that. Yep. Like you see, there's a lot of money that goes into the sports. There's a lot of great sports people that we have, and it's just, I don't know, it's you ask anybody, it's a journey that they had to make a decision to go, I want to make a difference. I don't want to live like this anymore. I want to break the mould of what an Aboriginal person is meant to be. Yep. You tend to find when young, it's like when you start out, it's like you're grasping, trying to find what it is. But I always say to young people when I teach, I've had to take on my own responsibilities. But my sounding board, I have a really good close network of family and friends.
Speaking of the young people, what are the next, you're working with some dancers, what are the next generation of dancers up here? What are they bringing to the table?
Well, see, my classes are open to anybody. And I think whether they're black, white or brindle, again, it's opened up. It's because I'll work with anybody who wants to tell my stories in my professional world. But if I have an opportunity to work or train young Indigenous people to a professional level, that's fantastic. It's a sense of, like with my male dancers, I said, take my hand, come for the ride, and see what happens. You know, and like I train them, and I train them really well. You know, making them feel safe, a safe environment. You know, sometimes I'm an neurotic artist, I go off, but if there wasn't anybody to show them the way and what the trials and tribulations, then it's not. What are they to look for? You know,
exactly.
There's no light at the end of the tunnel. But you know, I always say with young people, it's what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it.
So what's happening right now, you know, or in the coming months with the Gary Lang NT Dance Company?
For my next work, it's called Black Goose. It's only a working name title.
Yep.
But it could change. It could be Blackbird. It's just the name at the moment, in name. The work is, I'm using, basing it on Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake music, using classical music. I spoke to a music artist and he said to distort a little bit, you know, like he said you get a didgeridoo of the same key of that bit of music and the clapsticks. So, you know, so you bring the didgeridoo and clapsticks into it. I just love Swan Lake. That's a beautiful piece. Many people have done it. I'm not calling it Swan Lake, but I just love that. I want to work with that music.
Yep.
And yeah, it's going to be beautiful.
Yep. So that's coming up a little bit later in the year.
Hopefully, so yeah, February. Whether we do it, or, you know, whether we can get the space in February or later in the year.
Yep.
But one of the great feelings, Aurelien, from the artistic director of the WA Ballet, I met him at Oka's Contemporary Indigenous Dance Company when I was working there. He came and saw my work. He rang me while I was in Sydney to ask me to do a 15-minute piece with the WA Ballet, with some of my dancers and some of his dancers for the quarry season. So it's like independent old choreographers work on, whether it happens, but at least I was considered.
Exactly.
But also doing something with Darwin Symphony Orchestra at the end of the year. 40 years of Cyclone Tracer. They didn't do it last year, they're doing it at the end of this year.
Okay. Just before we go, and in closing, just what kind of words of advice and words of wisdom, rather, would you give for somebody who is looking to break the mold and be a dancer, or who just wants to dance and wants to get involved in that sense?
Like going away to Naystor Dance College, you know, some people have just come there on their own back. I think the biggest strength that kept me there was family and the support of family. What people think of you is none of your business, and it's a journey to break the mould. It's a journey that you travel by yourself for a period of time, and you will generally, once people see you're trying to make a difference, that's when they come.
Yeah.
That's when they come and they go, okay, what do you need? How can I help you? You know, they will come, the universe will provide that for you. Coming out of Naystor, there's a lot of graduates that are working on their own work, and they work in a particular style. And I think as you get older, you start to really understand or know who you are, what your style is.
Well, Gary, it was lovely having a sitting down and having a chat with you.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be catching up a little bit more. But thanks for your time.
Thank you, brother.
Here in the studio.
Thank you so
Aboriginal
much.
TV 41.
Thank you.